buzz through this. Hello, and you're very welcome to another JMac podcast. I'm John Moran, and of course, this podcast is brought to you by Orgaretcha.com and Atak.ie. Using promo code JMac podcast to get 15% off on Orgaretcha.com and get the best skins, gloves, and equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack minded. And if you're liking what you're seeing, like and subscribe on YouTube because the sport's been absolutely fantastic so far. Breaking news, lads. Mickey Moran has stepped down from the Kilcoo job as of this morning. And today I'm joined by Aaron Prendergast from GAA Fan TV and former Antrim footballer Kevin McCarthy to briefly touch on Mickey's career and the impact he has had on Kilcoo and his whole career. So I just thought it'd be right to give the man a great tribute. So I'll start off with yourself, Kev. How are you keeping?
I'm all good, John. Not unexpected news. I suppose Mickey's given a hell of a lot of time, a hell of a lot of energy to Kilcoo over the past 3-4 years. So, look, it was maybe coming, but what a legacy! What a legacy! Not only in Kilcoo that he leaves, but maybe if this is the last for to see Mickey Moran in terms of managing a team, then what a huge legacy in the GAA leaves. A guy that has been about for 4 decades, has been involved in coaching, coach education. His legacy is huge. And it's huge not only, at Kilcoo or at Sloughneel, but across Derry, Donegal, Sligo, Mayo, Leitrim. There's not many guys in the GAA have managed 5 different county teams over that period of time. And as I say, most importantly, I think he's one of the foremost coaches of our time, if not the foremost. His legacy is, as without doubt, the best club or most successful club coach in the history of Ulster football is certainly assured. And it's a fitting end really to finish off with that All-Ireland. As I said maybe a couple of weeks back after we looked at the All-Ireland club final, Mickey Moran and Kilcoo were a match made in heaven. Mickey hadn't just got over the line yet with that All-Ireland that he was desperately seeking. Kilcoo had been on a long journey and were maybe looking direction, and look, they found each other, and what a story it was. And I think that as I say, if this is the last for the sea of Mickey, then that's a very fitting tribute.
Aaron, how are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm doing great, John. Doing great. And I suppose I'll just echo what Kevin said there as well. I mean, obviously, one of the greatest managers probably in the GAA, and you're looking at one of the managers who's, been managing before, myself and yourself, John, were even born. Like that explains really how far back his management goes, like from managing Derry, Sligo, Donegal, obviously his stint at Mayo as well, Leitrim. And obviously winning 5 Ulster club senior football titles in a row, like obviously 3 of them with Sloughneel and very successful with Kilcoo as well. So you're looking at one of the top managers that has come through the GAA. And as Kevin was saying there, I mean, if this is his swan song and this is his retirement, then what better way to do it? I mean, it's a fairy tale story in many ways, and I'm sure, he was longing very much to always win this All-Ireland, whether it was at inter-county level or at club level. Obviously came very close with Mayo there back in 2006 and had a great Sloughneel team there that was knocking on the door. So huge achievement. And I suppose, if he does retire or he does come back, I mean, it'd be very interesting to see what happens next.
Absolutely, lads. Well, we can list through his achievements with Kilcoo. He won 3 county titles, 2 Ulster titles and 1 All-Ireland title. So serious going. We all know how difficult and tough club football can be, Kev. So that's serious going in very, very competitive championships. Yeah,
look, as I said, maybe the Down Football Championship hasn't been as competitive in the last couple of years as it had been maybe throughout the noughties. Kilcoo have come up. They've had a really good underage programme, and they were knocking on the door for a while, and they've made the breakthrough, and they've now really owned that championship. And that was fair enough, Kilcoo getting over the line in the Down Championship. But in fairness to them, they've kept on in Ulster. They've been a real regular competitor in Ulster for the last 10 years. It took them for a while to get over the line in Ulster, but now they've done it. Mickey obviously had the experience previously with Sloughneel winning Derry Championships, which again is a hugely competitive championship. And he had then gone on with Sloughneel to win Ulsters and take them the All-Ireland club finals as well. So, that's why I'm saying Mickey had that great experience, to bring into Kilcoo. He had that know-how. Kilcoo were, at the time, they were calling out for it. And, he's come in there, and it's a wonderful record. I don't think that will ever be repeated. Obviously it's 2 different clubs, but to win 5 Ulster club championships in a row, Okay, we had COVID and lockdown and whatever else, but that's an incredible achievement. And, you know, the consistency that Mickey's teams perform at, the way that he preps them. And, you know, as a manager, as a coach, you can only go into that game, you know, prepping your team. Sometimes it's down to the players. And look, Mickey always seems to have them ready to go for the big occasion. And, you know, even when things don't seem to go right for Cuckoo, or even previously with Stockdale in the first 15, 20 minutes of a game, the All-Ireland's final being an example this year, he seems to be able to get them in a turnaround, and, you know, is maybe his one-to-one with players, or the way he speaks to players, or his mentality. Certainly, you know, it empowers players and inspires them, and we've seen that with the second half of Cuckoo in this year's All-Ireland. So, you know, I think the one big thing that we need not to look at, that people maybe won't focus on in light of this announcement, is that, you know, all credit to Mickey for his achievements with the clubs and the counties, but it's really that coach education that I want to get across. You know, Mickey has been to the forefront in developing our coaching, you know, from the 70s onwards, whether that be at school or whether it be through what he was doing with clubs in the 80s, and then obviously getting him and Coleman and Derry in the 90s. You know, he, at the end of the day, he's always bringing forward new ideas. He's always thinking about the game in different ways, you know, whether that be, you know, coaching on the training field or tactically. So, you know, I think that's his big legacy rather than anything he's won, is that, you know, he's brought the game and developed the game forward so much. He's developed so many players right across the country and aided their GAA journey. And lastly, he's also inspired a new generation of coaches and has begun to teach them, like Conleth Gilligan. So, you know, there's lots we can say about Mickey Moran in terms of his CV and winning, but it's that untold stuff in the background, you know, maybe the player testimony, or how he's helping out new coaches, or how he aids other coaches in their journey is very important as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Aaron, what about yourself, Mickey Moran's achievements and, I suppose, legacy?
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, we were speaking earlier, obviously, in terms of some of his achievements as well, and I think Kev's hit the nail on the head there as well, in terms of, you know, leaving that legacy, leaving that blueprint for other managers, for, you know, players coming in, for coaching, and for innovating the game in many ways. And, you know, you think back to even when he managed Sligo, for example, and he got them to the 97 Connacht final. And even, I remember speaking to Mark Bretney there not too long ago about Mickey Moran's time there, and sort of the impact he had on Sligo, and setting that template for some of the other coaches that were coming in, for some of the younger players. And that could have had a lasting effect. You know, that could have probably had an impact on when Sligo got over the line in Connacht as well. So, you know, he's left a huge legacy at all the counties he's been with. And one would wonder as well, you know, could he have stayed longer at Mayo? Could there have been something else maybe he could have done there? You know, and who knows, because he done a fantastic job there in terms of getting them to that All-Ireland final, beating Dublin obviously along the way. And I know things didn't go too well against Kerry, but, you know, he's a top class manager, top class guy, and we've seen what that Mayo team done. So, look, you know, he's had a huge career, and obviously winning that All-Ireland with Kilcoo as well, which I'm sure he would have been thinking a lot about after obviously losing to the Corofin a couple of years previously. And as Kev said there, like, anytime they have been under the cosh a bit, or they've looked beaten, they've always found a way to come back. And even I referenced that semi-final against Dublin in 2006 as well. I think Dublin were 7 or 8 points up at the start of the second half, and Mayo were able to turn that one around. So that sort of fight in his teams always seems to be there in the second half of matches, and they find ways to win, even if it's not pretty. And I think maybe that's what separates him from a lot of other coaches as well.
And John, just to touch on that last bit Aaron's saying about separating him from other coaches, now we've got this sort of guy who's appointed as a manager, a figurehead of a team, you know, and then you've got a coach comes in behind him. Mickey's maybe that hybrid, you know, he's a background in coaching, and he seems to be quite a good people person. So not only is a good hands-on coach and, you know, an innovator in terms of what sort of coaching drills to be doing, or maybe new practices, but he's also a good tactician and seems to be a very good man manager. So, you know, he's that hybrid between the two. You know, psychology was a big part of certainly the late great John Morrison helping him out. You know, they brought psychology maybe to a new level. You know, that famous game that Aaron talks about, the All-Ireland semi-final, when Kieran Donaghy scores the beauty with the outside of the foot into the hill. You know, when they ran out onto the pitch, they ran down towards the Dublin end at the hill. You know, Dublin were already out. It was sort of a way of them psychologically saying, look, we're not just here to make up the numbers. We're here to do battle, you know. And if you think you're going to get it easy today, you're not. So, you know, that was a big part of his style as well, and certainly the mentality that he built into players. You know, that never say die attitude. We've seen it with Slaughtneil for a long time. They just didn't get over the line. Maybe they didn't get the breaks that Kilcoo did. So, you know, his legacy's massive. Again, his contribution to third level education, you know, and the journey that so many players coming up through university with his involvement with the University of Ulster. I was lucky in the 07 final. We beat a very good Jordanstown team for Queens after extra time. But Mickey stayed on with Jordanstown. You know, it just wasn't about him walking away. And, you know, he stayed on. He was committed. The following year they went out and, you know, they brushed everybody aside and won the Sigerson in the end. So, you know, he's had such an effect on county players, on schools where he first started out, on third level guys on their journey. So, you know, really every facet of Gaelic football Mickey's been involved in, whether it be coaching, schools, you know, primary schools, clubs, inter-county, third level. You know, he's just been a colossus for the game in Ulster.
And what you would say as well, he's not afraid to take difficult jobs as well. Like, he's not afraid to go in at Leitrim, not afraid to go in at Sligo, Donegal, managing loads of different clubs as well. Like, maybe you'd have some top class managers who would shy away from those kind of jobs and positions. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for that as well.
Yeah, and I think if you look at his time in Donegal, I think he gets into the Ulster. They had quite a torrid league, and then they get to the Ulster final against that common great Armagh team, you know, and maybe just a bit lucky there. But, you know, one has to speculate in the background that this was Mickey Moran, the ultimate professional, the great coach, and he was in with Donegal party boys, you know, and maybe if they had come down to sort of, they had to come away from that party boy mentality and maybe signed up to what Mickey Moran usually expects from teams, they could have gone places, you know. So I totally get Aaron's point in that. He does take hard jobs. He's been the outposts. Like he took Kilray for a couple of years in Derry. He took, I think his wife's from Cragan and Antrim. He laid the foundations there for them. They won the championship this year for the first time in I think 60 or 70 years. And part of the reason was that Mickey Moran had went in there 7-8 years ago and laid great foundations. So, you know, it's not only the high profile jobs and what he's got on his CV, it's the effect he's had on building foundations elsewhere.
Absolutely, that's absolutely. And of course, Aaron, obviously the moment after the All-Ireland final, he kissed the bit of grass on the pitch where the goal was scored. Conor Gilligan and Conor Lafferty brought him up for the lifting of the trophy, a special moment. And you maybe got the feeling right, is that the final act for Mickey Moran? Who knows? We'd love to see him jump into something again. But in fairness, Aaron, if that is the last Mickey Moran, an All-Ireland club title in Croke Park, not a bad way to bow out.
Yeah, I mean, you probably did get the feeling of that. I mean, we've seen that down the years, whether players come out and leave their boots on the pitch or different things like that. We've seen that in the past where it probably did look like maybe it was his last outing, and you can understand that from his point of view as well. I mean, he's given so much to the game over the last 30 to 40 years, and he gets that All-Ireland, he gets that big moment, he gets that crown and achievement, and it is the fairy tale ending in many ways that a lot of other coaches, managers, players, a lot of the time don't get, you know. So I think to win that All-Ireland and to have that moment, I suppose, with obviously his players and, you know, his coaching staff and everyone else, it probably was a moment of almost saying thank you to, you know, Croke Park, to the game for what it's given to him. And you can completely understand it from his point of view. And I mean, if that is the way he bows out, I think it's a fantastic fairy tale ending.
Kev, what about yourself?
Yeah, it'd be a great legacy to leave, although I do think that Mickey's one of these guys that he'll just not give up going to matches if he doesn't want another club job. So, you know, we're no doubts to see him maybe involved in his own club, Glen Mahara, which would be great to see him going back there. Maybe they're on an upward curve now, maybe sitting as a pair of eyes in the stand, you know. But as someone who's been involved as he has been, you know, in the innovation of coaching and coach education, you know, I don't think we'll see the last. That's the last we've seen of Mickey, you know, involvement in some way or other in the game. But, you know, a huge legacy to leave if that's his last management job in terms of what he's done in Kilcoo. Possibly, you know, bar someone like Caltra winning the All-Ireland club back a number of years ago. Such a small parish, such a beautiful story, you know, and these two guys sort of Kilcoo as the club and Mickey Moran as the manager and individual who were tracing the same dream and maybe had to find each other to meet that dream, and they eventually done it. So such a great story, such a great legacy to have. But hopefully it's not the last that we'll see him in terms of coaching and educating a new generation of coaches. We've obviously seen that with Conor Gilligan, has learned a lot from him, under him, and maybe Connor's ready now to come out of the cocoon as such and spread his wings and implement what Mickey's taught him, and that can only be good for Derry football and moving forward.
Absolutely. And Aaron, do we see kind of many men like Mickey Moran these days? Will we see a man like Mickey Moran anytime soon? Because he does remind me of a kind of character like Jim McGuinness or even Jim Gavin, very quiet along the sideline, doesn't do many interviews. So maybe did that help his longevity and maybe the success that he did have in his career, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean it's hard to know. I suppose the one manager or sort of coach that I can see maybe in the background is maybe slightly, I suppose, reminds me a bit of him is maybe Paul Conirk with the Limerick Hurlers at the minute. He obviously has a big role with the Limerick footballers as well. Has his own academy down there, former Limerick footballer himself. Obviously in the background with the Clare Hurlers as well when they won the All-Ireland there as well. So, maybe there's some slight similarities there as well in terms of innovation in the game and some slight different changes and just little tweaks and those fine margins and those extra 5 to 10%. So it's hard to know really if there will be another manager just like him. We're seeing maybe the demands in the game nowadays are probably a lot more than what they were, back in the 90s to the 2000s. You're looking at someone like Jim Gavin, for example, who, obviously won 5 in a row, achieved it all, probably could have stayed with Dublin an extra 5 years and maybe won more All-Irelands, more leagues, and could have went down as, even in better legacy than he was. So the demands are definitely a lot higher nowadays. So I don't know if you would see someone as involved as what he's done, considering it's 30 to 40 years. But I think again that just goes to his achievement, considering how many different counties he's managed as well. Will we see that? I'm not sure.
Kev, what about yourself?
I suppose the only modern day manager that I can sort of see getting anywhere near him in terms of the young profile, and I think Aaron's right, where the game has, with all due respect to Mickey, the game has progressed over time in terms of its commitment and its, burnout and things like that managers get, to focus on the press. When you first think of maybe Mickey starting in the 70s or the 80s involved in coaching, the press now has gone through the roof. There's so many other things to deal with as well, the levels of commitment, the professionalism that the players are having, strength and conditioning, things like that. So it'd be very hard for any manager to replicate that. But, when you look at it, Rory Gallagher's already been at 3 counties, sort of, he was assistant to Jim McGuinness, but very well thought of and helped Donegal get back to the Ulster title that particular year. He's managed Fermanagh. I think they got the Ulster final, and now he's progressing well with Derry. So, it's much harder now for managers. The burnout, you only get 2 or 3 years, to make an impression. Some only get maybe 2 years. So I can't really see anybody going to that five inter-county teams that Mickey did. But I think we must remember as well that it's not only Mickey's legacy is not only that he managed 500 county teams or won county championships in Derry and Tyrone and in Down. It's the fact of his coaching legacy in terms of the innovation that he brought to the game, the new tactics, sort of the new coaching regime that he had, the psychology he brought to the game. So, that would be very hard to replicate from any other individual in terms of that great master plan that he had and the new stuff that he brought in that developed the game forward to what we see today.
Well, there we go. Nice and brief. But anyway, Mickey Moran, thanks a million. You're an absolute legend to the GAA. Hope we see more of you, and it was great to see you along the line for Kilcoo and many other teams, and we wish you well. It was a fantastic career that you had thus far. We'd love to see you back again. Aaron, Kevin, thanks a million for joining me, and of course the podcast is brought to you by orgarech.com and Atak.ie. Use my promo code JMac podcast to get 15% off on orgarech.com. I get the best skins, gloves, equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack minded. And if you like what you're seeing, subscribe on YouTube. Sport's been absolutely brilliant so far. Last thing, International Women's Day. What are you doing for it, Kev?
Working.
Anthony or Aaron even?
Oh, I don't know now, John. I think